Hiya and welcome back to Chatters DIY. Thanks for tuning in. In today's second episode, we're going to be looking more at predominantly at the roof window being fitted, but there'll also be little bits and bobs on the rafter strengthening and what we have to do with that, opening up the staircase or that area for the staircase, and then getting onto the ensuite walls. It's going to be mainly a slideshow, but I've worked out how to do a commentary over the top of it. It's a little bit of a ball ache. The Photos app doesn't allow you to just record over it, so I have to do a separate recording, but bear with me. It's a little bit better than what I thought it was going to be, and hope to see you at the end.
So I've got a series of photos now that show, the majority of them are showing the installation of the second roof window. This one here though is just showing the two rafters, the old one and the new one, being bolted together, which was a requirement for the building regs. If they were bolted at the bottom where the bird mouth is, and we can see there sitting on top of the purlin, and then they were bolted halfway up, and then at the top obviously there was the collar ties, so it was just the two on each rafter. Prior to the inspection, then I did the second roof window. These collar ties that are on that shot there, they're just supporting the rafters whilst I was installing the window, because cutting through two of them, the weight of all those tiles being unsupported or just being supported by the battens over that about 1.5 meters distance, I wasn't comfortable cutting them out and just leaving them to support that. So I put those two collar ties in, hold it up whilst I did the job. The rafters were it was a very nervous time cutting them out. You can see from the photos the nails coming through the membrane, and what were going into the rafter. Even after I'd done the two cuts at the top and the bottom, prizing the rafters off those nails was really precarious, because you had to give them a good hoof with the pry bar, and it kind of came off in a bit of a sharp jolt, and it just meant that like you could feel the roof move, and like the weight of the tiles and them all crunching together. I thought I was going to have a baby. Basically what I did was, with that pry bar, was I put that one end in first, managed to wiggle them away a little bit, and then turn the pry bar around and put the claw hammer style end in, and that was, you get the more leverage, and you could just pull it off and prise it off quite gently. Did that for the two of them, and then supported it at the top and the bottom with a new piece in between the two rafters. And then if you look to the right hand side of that new piece, there's also a new side piece put in, ready for the to fit the window in. Then we do a couple of cuts to sort of open up the space and reveal the battens. We do the two triangular cuts and then cut between them, and that gives you like the four sides for you to pin it to the each rafter. So there's cutting through, and then we pin it back to the rafters so that you get an unobstructed view of the battens and the tiles. And then one by one, that was the first one, or looks like the second one, you start sliding the tiles out between the battens. And once you've got a little opening, it becomes quite easy. From here on in, it's they just come out quite quickly. You just slide them along to the open section and out they come. Seeing this big opening though, again, that was quite nerve-wracking. Obviously at that point it's do or die. You get it right, or you've got a massive hole in your roof. So part of my instructions for my Facro window was that you had to cut off the battens 10 mil over from the rafter, So I used a piece of tile trim there and just cut a line, drew a line down all of them so that they were nicely in line with each other, and I didn't really have to measure it because it was a 10mm width on the trim. I can't really though show you installing your type of window because mine was a particular manufacturer, and yes, cutting the hole out in the roof is pretty standard, pretty generic. Actually, the instructions for each window will be different, so I suggest if you're going to do this yourself, to YouTube search how to install your manufacturer's windows, because they've pretty much all got their own videos on there. So once you've marked your lines, I could then cut through the battens one by one. The first one's a bit awkward because they're one above, so it kind of restricts the amount of space you've got to cut with the blade. But once you've gone through that first one, again, you just fly through them. And I just thought I'd take a few pictures of the different angles to show the lines of tiles and how they fit around. You'll see that I've had to remove a couple of extra tiles from the sides, and then about 3 extra rows from above the window. That allows the flashing kit to be fitted underneath the tiles. So there's the bottom row after just installing the frame. You'll see there's about a 10mm gap between the bottom batten and the frame itself. That's on purpose, that's not an accident. That's been filled in there with the rock wool insulation, and the reason that's there is once the brackets have been fitted to the frame of the window, the brackets just sit on the side rafters, but the window has to be perfectly square so that when the window shuts inside the frame there's a nice even gap all the way around. So you do have to kind of adjust the brackets a little bit, maybe raise one side up slightly, or even lift it off the rafter using a little wedge that is normally supplied. And once you've fiddled with that and got that right, then obviously you can lock it down, and you do a test fit for the window. As long as the window fits all right, you take it back out and put all the flashing kit on. The top of the window here, you can see that's the one layer, the first layer of flashing is on. It's that grey metal strip. That's like the base layer. The rest of the flashing kit then fits around the top of that and goes underneath the tiles, that first row of tiles you can see. It's pretty foolproof actually, the flashing kits. Once they're on, you can see how much they overlap with each other, and there's no way that they're ever going to leak. So I was quite confident of that actually. And there's the window installed. I hadn't finished at this point. This was just the evening that we'd done it. I hadn't finished building the rafters then around it, but obviously all those other rafters that haven't been doubled up in size, they all have to get done. The one on the right, the little rafter, that's the little trimmer on the right, that has to be doubled up as well. You have to have a double trimmer for the strength, again for the building regulations, and that's something that got checked quite rigorously. What you can't see from this shot is like how big the window is. For some reason the angle of the shot just seems to make it look a little bit smaller, but actually it's over 1 meter wide in height and width, and it was very, very heavy. Getting that up through the loft hatch opening was monumental. I had to take the ladder off, and it still wasn't big enough, the opening. I then had to take all the hatch out completely, and then thankfully diagonally it went up and through, and thankfully the frame did as well, but it was so heavy. The window, that's like really thick window glass, and I had to shoulder press it up through the hole, and it was, I kind of got stuck there for a while, where you had to, I got it up through the hole but then didn't know what to do with it. I had to lie it down really gently so it didn't crash down and break. But yeah, it was quite a precarious minute with Kirsty watching on in disbelief. Jack here is doing a little job for me. He was quite anxious to get his name in as doing part of the work. So he's got a 50mm block of wood and he's holding it up against the battens, and all he's doing is marking the position with a marker pen on the back of the new rafters where 50mm is. Obviously, I talked about in the design video that there has to be a 50mm air gap above the insulation level. So what I did was, when Jack marks these 3 marks on the rafters, I put a little batten of wood, which just indicates a 50mm mark, and then the insulation boards have something to sit against, and that prevents them from going too far into the roof rafter cavity. And I took another picture just after I'd tidied up a bit. Kind of shows the size of the room a little bit better. From the left hand side of where I'm standing to where the chimney breast is, that's 17 foot, and then from the window where it sits on that purlin, where the dwarf wall will be, to the right hand side opposite, that's about 11 foot or 12. So yeah, it's quite a large room. So there's the 2 windows together. Again, on the design video I discussed how one big window for a square room works better. If you had a long room, you'd have smaller windows but more a lot more of them spaced out equally along its length to light it better. So this, with the wall around the one, the same applies on both sides. One big nice window. So we're almost at the point where the inspection was done here. The one thing I did want to show was I really wanted it to be clear where the stairs was going to be, and I had to lift up the floorboards to do the plumbing, which you can just about see the 2 water pipes and the waste pipe with the blue bit on the top on the right hand side of this picture. I lifted up the rest because it's got to be cut away for the stair opening on the left hand side, pretty much where those boards are sat up. All that section there gets cut away and all the joists had to be adjusted. But I just wanted that floor signed off first by the inspection, and then after she'd left and signed it all off and it was all given the okay, I had to put a massive joist then from the centre of the room, pretty much where the drill is, all the way to the wall plate on the left side of this shot on the front of the house. That's one monster joist as well. It's a doubled up 7x2 and about 14 foot long, just to support that weight of all the joists coming off that internal spine wall. And there's the insulation removed, so that's all the section that turned into this opening. Once all that had been done, again, I cut away. I managed to, you could cut away the ceiling, and then this became my new entrance to the loft, so that I could board up the hole where the loft hatch was before. This made a big difference actually. It was a nice large opening, so that any boards, panels that was going past up there, it was much easier. I made a temporary ladder to get up there, and secured it to the wall at the top, so I could get up there using one hand and carry something else, and that worked out to be really useful. And then finally, this is the only shot I've got of this stage, because unfortunately my old phone that I was using to make recordings and photographs packed up completely. I managed to get it up and running for about 3 minutes, quickly plugged it into my laptop and started downloading the footage, but I only got part way through, and it completely crashed again, and there's no saving it according to the shop. It's got to get sent back to the manufacturer and wiped. So luckily I'd sent this picture and a few others to my sister on WhatsApp, and she managed to send it back to me. This is the walls for the ensuite. Obviously all the plumbing that goes underneath the boards had been finished at this point, so I've had to adjust the joists to accommodate the shower waste and the sink waste going into the pipe that was pre-positioned from when we had the bathroom done. What we did was we put them going into a non-return valve prior to it going into that down pipe, and then the macerator from the toilet literally links up above that section. So when the macerator pumps, it doesn't pump anything back up the pipe system to the shower or the sink. You can imagine what a mess that would have been if that non-return valve wasn't put in. But as it happens, then it means that the only reason the macerator would have to be, the pump would have to come on for it, is if you flush the toilet or if you use the toilet. If we use the shower, it ain't going to be using the macerator; it'll just flow away. The gable wall on the left-hand side of that shot there, because it's double brick thickness, it only needed 50mm insulation, but there was no cavity in that section, so that got 50mm insulation, which you'll see at a later point. And yeah, I think that's about it for this one.
Well, hope you enjoyed that. I certainly did enjoy doing the roof window. It was the first time I've ever done one of them, and it was quite a challenge, but luckily I'd watched a few videos and read about it on the Haynes manual. Felt quite confident. One thing I do love about it is the fact that you don't have to climb up onto the roof, get ladders involved and all that. You just do it from the inside completely with a two-step ladder. So I thought that was really clever. Whoever's come up with that way of doing it deserves a pat on the back. In the next episode, we're going to be looking at the gable wall construction, the stud wall, continuing with the ensuite construction, the construction of the dwarf walls, the insulation of the eaves storage areas, and yeah, hope you stay tuned for that. Hope you find it interesting. Thanks for sticking around, and you've been watching Chatters DIY. Stay healthy. See you later.